All right. Welcome everyone to this month's MSPs in Conversation. We've got a bit of an open mic sort of thing today. We're talking about lessons from the trenches, leveraging experiences for MSP growth. So today we're going to be sort of covering bits and pieces that we all would have done differently. So I really do encourage the questions. If you've got anything and everything, feel free to drop it in today. Very quickly, as always, an introduction to who Hosted Network is. So if you don't already know, we are a wholesale cloud and telco provider for MSPs. We provide cloud and telco the way it should be for an MSP. We started as an MSP 20 years ago and have been wholesale for 10 years. If you'd like to know more information, and if you don't know already, feel free to reach out to us. But as I always say, today isn't about us. It is about our wonderful panelists. So I will get you guys to introduce yourself. And Ryan, you are a regular on our show, but please give us the highlight.
Mate, before the introduction, I've got to say congratulations on getting the audio and the intro music working this time.
Someone was going to say it. I was like, and then I saw someone's face and I was like, oh, maybe that's too loud. So at least silence. It wasn't going to be
Sorry.
Improvements every day. Always be improving.
Back onto this. Yeah, look, I'm Ryan Spillane, or Fuzzy, as most people know me, CEO of 360 Consulting. I used to be the managing director of Correct Solutions. We were a 59-seat MSP that's sold into what is now the Oro roll-up. With a lot of M&A along the way, 10 for ourselves, 3 I've done in other industries. And during that time, I helped 31 other companies do some sort of M&A activity. So when I sold my MSP, it kind of felt the natural place for me to go and spend my time and semi-retire into looking after and consulting with other MSPs on profitability, M&A, valuations, and long-term strategy.
Wonderful. Thank you. And AJ, welcome back.
Put your mic
Hello.
down again.
Thank you. So Aaron Jacobs, many of you probably know me. I've been on these things a few times. So used to be the general manager of Roden Business Solutions. We're about a 30-seat MSP. So I was with that business for 20 years, and technical background wore sort of every hat as many MSP people do all the way through those years. It's been about the last 8-ish years being the general manager and overseeing things there, before ultimately stepping over here to Sophos, which I was a partner and a customer of Sophos for a decade before doing that. And saw that as my way out, so to speak.
Wonderful. And Dave, you're a fresh face here, so thank you for joining us. Mind introducing yourself?
Sure. So I'm the only one in an MSP at the moment, I think, Ben, you were saying?
Yes, you are.
Yep. Started in the end of 2010, so a bit over 10 years. We've got, at our height, we had 25 staff, or 26, 27, 11 million turnover. And I'm excited to talk about whatever I can pass on to other people at whatever stage they're at. So, because I mean, I feel like every 2 years it's like a different company almost. I'm sure Ryan and Aaron can, it's so different. And I also did start technically. I have a CCNA and an MCSA, but it's very, very old now. And I'm more of a business guy, I guess you'd say.
Wonderful. All right. Well, I'll stop the sharing of the slides and we will jump right into it. Let me get myself set up. All right. So first things first. The first question that we had today submitted was around staffing. So I'd like to just sort of start there. And it is a big topic. We did a 2-part series on staffing. So if you haven't seen that, check it out. But at a high level, I wanted to talk a little bit about benefits of staff. I had a few questions around that. What actually is working and what you guys have seen work for benefits? Does the ping pong table actually help with retention? So Fuzzy, I might throw that one to you first of all.
I thought the way you're going first, the benefits of staff, that could be a few different things. Look, again,
I thought that's
look, I said in the previous one, staff are your biggest asset, but biggest liability. You need to have a real good crew and a real good team to make it work well. Look, I don't know. I'm torn on some of those things. I think it's whatever's like, you need to build and foster a good culture over a long period of time. You can't just buy a culture overnight. It's not going to last. It's never going to work. So yes, building a long-term culture is really critical. I've seen some interesting things. We used to provide lunch 4 days a week. We had massage therapists come into both of our offices like a couple of days a week. So basically it works out that you'd get a 20-minute massage every fortnight at least. Sometimes you get it more often. We had other benefits and whatnot. If again, we're quite flexible in timing. We expected our pound of flesh as well. Don't get me wrong, but we expected if you had a family thing on, or your kid was doing in a musical or whatnot, we expected you to actually be there, not actually being in the office. Like if the place was burning down, that's something different, which it shouldn't ever really be. But yes, we expected you to actually go and do family stuff. If you could do a doctor's appointment in the middle of the day or a haircut, no, go and do it. That was kind of expected so we were flexible in what we could do. We had enough people, and again, it was a bit of swings and roundabouts. Yes, IT, some of it has to be done after hours or weekends, or things break and you need to get in, and people then kind of did that and looked after those things for us. So on those types of things, yeah, look, we had a bit of a fun room, probably not as much as what I'd probably like it to be. I've seen plenty of other MSPs that I've walked into and TSPs over the years with Xbox rooms and pinball tables, all these types of things. And yeah, look, they're good. It comes down to how often are they really used. So I've seen one up in Queensland. They've actually got a set of DJ mixer decks and things like that. And they actually have a bit of a party in their office every Friday afternoon, because one of the owners used to be, or still is, a bit of a DJ on the side. So yes, they have a bit of a music and they've got some lights happening and things like that. But on the other hand, though, if your support team's on phone calls with clients, that probably doesn't go down so well. So there's a time and a place. I have seen one of the companies we took over had a 3/4 size pinball table. Yes,
Table tennis.
not pinball. What did you say before?
Table tennis.
Table tennis.
Table tennis. Thank you. Yes, they had a 3/4 size table tennis. I literally, my sales manager ended up playing a game once on it, just to at least someone had used it. But in the 2 years or 2.5, 3 years we had that office that I was there, I never saw anyone actually play it. What I did see is people watching Netflix at lunchtime, on the TV in the lunchroom and things like that, but I didn't really see some of the other stuff. I did see a bunch of our guys do LAN nights and LAN games and things like that. We even actually put a special gaming network between all of our offices, so it didn't matter which office you were in. You could just bring your laptop or bring whatever in and come and work it, like it would work, and as if it was all on a private network. So that was actually pretty cool for those guys. But yeah, it's a mix. It's what's right and what works for you and your culture. That's what you've got to work out.
Dave, what about you? What have you seen that that helps with, employee benefits, that help with retention, those sort of things, and what didn't, that you've tried that didn't work?
I think it's an interesting question. I kind of look at it differently than I used to. So a lot of those I would say are perks, and perks are good, but they're not actually culture, in my opinion. So they're good things to have, but they're separate to whether you're actually have the right people in the right seat and managing properly and listening to them every day and being a good leader and all of those things that actually make them care. So I've had times in the company where we're throwing a lot of perks at them and they're great, but they're not going to keep them happy because we're not managing properly, or we're managing properly and there's no perks, but they will not leave. And I think one of the best things you can do to protect your team is, and I'm sure everyone has been in this situation, sometimes there'll be someone or multiple people in the company that are not quite fitting right, or they're throwing a lot of negativity. And that's the difficult job we've got to do, is protect your good staff and manage the bad staff. That can go a huge way to culture. And I think I've heard other people say, I think it might have been you even, Ryan, you may have told me a story of guys that have been through it and they've realized we've got to get rid of a lot of staff that are bringing down the culture or the vibe or whatever. So That's just my 2 cents, I guess. It's a complex scenario, but if you have the right people and you look after them, regardless of the perks, that's generally speaking. And that's
One
the
bad
hard
apple.
thing, right?
One bad apple can damage it really fast.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, it's interesting that you sort of say that, and we I mean, I've said this saying. Meryl, who our marketing manager, actually came back from a partner meeting many years ago now, and the partner, I can't remember which partner it was, but anyway, they talked about cutting the cancer, and it's always stuck with me in that sort of sense. And it's and shortly after that, it was, you know, we had some people internally in that let's put it this way, the PlayStation and the Tekken game got very competitive and they never got used again. So but you're right, Dave, that you know, that sort of, you know, the right people around you, it's kind of like that family mentality, that sort of that team really does go a long way in that sense. So that's a good piece of advice. And to Meryl's comment in the thread, no, we're not getting a massage therapist. So thank you for that, Fuzzy, giving everyone ideas.
Well, I work from home full time, and I've asked my wife to be my massage therapist during the week, and it just doesn't work. Like, I don't know. I've tried. So
working from home, does that kind of, you know, do you find that works for you, AJ? Did that work for you when you had when you were running Roden?
Working from home, what a topic to throw. Okay, so prior to COVID, we were all very office based, like I would probably imagine most MSPs were generally, where people could work from home, but it was pretty much as it was before COVID, right? It was as needed and things like that. During COVID, we all moved home. Post COVID, it was that whole debate that everyone's had about, do we come in or not? I am fortunate enough to live very close to where my office was, so I had that separation where home was home, work was work. If I needed to work, I would go to the office. And I guess I treated everyone the same in that regard. Again, with hindsight, right? That's the point of today. Hindsight's a beautiful thing. I've moved to this role. It's a global role. I work from home full time. Now, that was very isolating at the start, especially when I didn't know too many people. It took quite a bit, but now just a couple of now and just a couple of months after that sort of initial phase, I absolutely love it. I think I'm way more productive being at home. And I could see, I sort of look back and think there was so little need for that office, and all the money and effort and ping pong tables and things like that went into it. I mean, my team now and my boss, I have never met in person, not once, since I've been at Sophos over a year now. And our team are amazing. Like, we would all do anything for each other. So culture is definitely not a ping pong table, as we've all alluded to. And look, I don't know if anyone else on the call has or not, but I've never been asked from someone applying for a job, do I have a ping pong table? And I've definitely never asked it. I didn't come into Sophos asking how many perks do you have. So I don't think, like, to your point, I think they're perks, they're not culture. Culture is the people. Culture is, I think you said, being a good leader. Absolutely. Not having separations between your teams. Yes, obviously you need separation, but you know, we definitely went through over the years a technical versus sales thing. You probably, to nod your head, David, you've probably seen that too before. That's a thing, and you'll start to see little different teams start to do different things together, and you can suddenly see which team has good culture and which team doesn't. So yeah, I think work from home is great, but yeah, again, it's all about the people, the leadership, the inclusion. And, you know, if you are from home, you've got to be doing, you do that still, but just virtually, right? You've got to be in it. You've got to be part of it. So
just on looking at some of the attendees here, and I've been into their office down in Adelaide, but what's the name? There's a attendee here that their office actually has a ping pong championship. Like, they literally have a leaderboard, and it's a full office thing, and everyone's in on it, and a championship on it, and it works really well. Like, it looks really great when they do it. And I know people that do that with sometimes a billiard table or a pool or whatnot. So yeah, they can be part of it. Don't be wrong. But then again, there's the little perks, as David says. They're not, and even Aaron, they aren't your culture.
They can bring things to get people together. Yeah.
I'm not poo-pooing them. They're like icing, let's say. I'm not saying
icing. That's
come
good.
on, David. Come on.
It's like, you still got to have a good cake, but they're
having
icing.
time
They can
for
be
those
icing.
things, right?
That's right.
Sorry, David. Having time for those things is important too, right? Like,
Yeah,
if you don't have enough staff, and you've got all these awesome perks sitting there, but everyone's worked to the core. At the end of the day, no one wants to hang around and have a beer and play ping pong. They want to go home. So
yeah, it's a very, very valid point. I'm just going to throw this out into the chat. What's the if anyone wants to add it in, what's the craziest perk that you've ever been asked for in an interview? Just has anyone had any crazy ones?
I had a specific brand and model down to the SKU of laptop that I had to provide. Like it was like I'll walk away unless I have that. And I was like, what? So not quite a perk, more of equipment, but still, it's pretty unique.
Well, that's kind of for those that run EOS, GWC. Do they get it? Do they want it? They don't get
it. Definitely didn't meet that.
But look, on the other side of that, that probably takes the cake a little bit. But on the other hand, I also see so many businesses and even MSPs that are running older hardware or hardware they've pulled back from a customer's site or whatnot, and it's a false economy. Like we get paid for our time, and under managed services, or used to under managed services, you've got to deliver a certain amount or keep something's working and try and be as efficient as possible. Running older equipment doesn't cut it. Like probably 15 years ago, we were running SSDs long before, like we were buying HP equipment, which is what we were a HP house, and HP didn't have SSDs. So we were actually dumping our own SSDs into their machines just to have it quicker for our techs. So it was quicker for them to do their job. So for customers that were still on break fix back then, it was a benefit for them, but which is probably not necessarily what you want to do. But on the other hand, though, we're converting pretty much everything over to managed services. So for us, it was all about efficiency as well. And you don't want to be sitting on an old piece of equipment or a piece of dodgy equipment or a machine that B-sides or whatever. It's like, one, it's not a good look anyway. But number two, it's like your team actually want to see you investing back into those things. Again, it's not a culture thing. It's not a perk thing. It's give your people the tools they need to do their job effectively.
I feel like Fuzzy's selling me a new fleet at the moment. Upgrade my fleet for my staff.
But there are ways of tackling, like, I mean, saying on that topic, I mean, when we looked at many years ago, doing refreshes like that, even internally, rather than doing it as ad hoc, do a refresh cycle and finance the whole thing so that it's not a big burden, right? And then everyone, so you can tie those sort of things in. But you're right, Fuzzy, that the right tool for the right job as well, right? I remember my first MSP, job many years ago, and getting like the fourth generation hand me down as a level 2 tech sort of thing, and it's not a great impression. The first, your dirty mouse, dirty keyboard, and it's like, oh, okay, this is what I'm in for, right? But I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean that's the priority, right? These are all about balancing, right? You've got to have the right team. At the end of the day, you can have the perks, but as you mentioned, AJ, if you don't have the time, it's interesting. So let's stay on the topic of staff. I've been having this conversation, and we've got MSPs coming up about recruitment and those sort of things, MSPs in conversation as well. But in your experience in more recent times, what has been your best way to find technical staff? Particularly, because that's the question I see constantly. My LinkedIn is just like, hey, recruiting, right? Everyone has the pain point. Have you guys found a golden bullet?
David?
David.
Anyone?
Yeah,
David, there you go. David, you've got a golden bullet. Everyone seems to think you've got a golden bullet.
Dave's still an MSP, so he should probably go first. Fresh meat.
It's a broad question. Like, I mean, I was saying before the call, it's a complicated business, or at least we can make it a complex business. Like, I'll answer it in this way. In one, it depends on how streamlined your MSP is, because if you've got a really streamlined MSP with a lot of good systems and processes and standard offerings, you don't necessarily need guns all the time, unless a gun has left, let's say. But if you're more of a disorganized, or not so disorganized, less mature MSP, and you're relying more on individuals to do amazing things, then that's a bit more tricky. And yes, the market has been difficult over the last 12 months. So I think at one point there, we just had an ad constantly in Seek, and we were just continually interviewing. It's a sustained effort. And it's wherever your MSP is, you got to figure out what you need in your company, not what they're worth in the market, because and there may be something that doesn't line up there. It's very difficult, especially in a smaller MSP, because every time you add on just one staff member, you need a certain amount of revenue to cover that person. And it can be a big cliff where you want enough people to be able to add more clients on, but if you haven't added all the clients on to get the profitability, it's a very difficult balancing act. So I don't have a good answer to your question. But having said that, we've had a lot of success trying to look after staff, get more level ones in and mature them up, rather than we need a level 3. Like, that's really hard to do. That's very hard, and they'll be they're valuable, and they know they're valuable. So I'd be, looking your internal team first. What can we do to get this person from a level 1 to a level 2, or from a level 2 to a level 3, and backfill it? That's always been my first way to try and do it if we can.
It's an interesting advice. We most people on this call that have been on here before know that I'm a big advocate of level 1 training programs, and that's something that we've suffered with. Most people also know that our entire team work fully remotely, and we're actually to the point we're actually looking at setting up an office again purely for level 1 training program, to try and get that, that fresh blood, and that, and we actually enjoy it. We find it's giving back and whatnot as well. But it's hard to do when you're remote as well. But the best guys that we've ever had, you're right, level 1. And what I found, and maybe if anyone else has got any other ideas around sort of setting up a level 1 training program or maturing it, but aligning yourself with like the local TAFE. I had a great relationship with the head of IT at North Sydney TAFE, and that really helped. Constantly, hey, and it was old school, but like putting up the job board, so when they're in the classrooms, walking past, that they'd see. Does anyone else have any sort of like tidbits to sort of move along a level 1 program?
I think the TAFE from the heads, I think that comes down to the head teacher. We actually tried that, because I had good success with that many years ago. We tried that up in the Hills district, and the teacher just didn't care. The head teacher just wasn't interested. So it just didn't work out. And it comes down to, I think, that person who is running the program at the time, and how in tune they are with the local companies or with the industry or whatnot, and what their care factor is, to be honest with you. I'll back David in on the continual recruitment. You should always be, in my mind, depending on the size of your business, but I think you should always be recruiting, because you never know. You could get a diamond in a rough. You could get someone that just lost a job and is just not happy with what they're doing, and kind of clicks on your ad and goes through the interview process. It's amazing, just some interesting, really good finds. Some of the best finds we ever had, we were never actually looking for someone, and someone just referred them to us as a good place to work, or that we could take people on or whatnot. And we always said, if we find a good person, we'll always take them on. We'll always find the work. It was never, our issue was never finding their work. It was always finding a good lot of people. And again, David and I have spoken about this plenty of times in the past. We actually had our own cadet program. It was a 2-year cadetship and whatnot, brought them in from really someone that's had an interest in IT into being able to do service desk and even working on some DR type work and whatnot after 2 years. And then from there, they joined like the service desk, more so level 1, and then it's level 2, and then develop people over many years. That's the best way. Well, again, you get to train them in your bad habits rather than trying to break someone else's bad habits out of them. So that helps. And it's not, and a lot of people think, oh, getting L0s is cheap and this, that, and the other. If you do it properly, it's not. They're actually more expensive, because you should be allocating a certain amount of L2 time and L1 time with those cadets, and your L3s should be mentoring your L1s and L2s. And that's probably the tell for me on what's a really good L3 and even above L3 or whatnot. But the real Uber techs that are really good are the ones that are happy to spend some time with the L1s, the L0s, the L2s below them, and mentor them, train them, make them better, want to improve them. There's plenty of L3s out there that, in my mind, and I've called 1 or 2 of them out over the years, that are rubbish, because they bitch and moan about the people below them that are not good enough and this, that, and the other, but they spend absolutely zero time trying to help them. And then they wonder why they've got a problem. And then they wonder why they change job every 2 years or 3 years, because really they're not going to go anywhere, because they're not willing to help, or they're not willing to actually put back in and really go give as such back into the people below them. Because everyone's got to join and learn somehow. You're either part of the process to teach them and improve things, or you can bitch and moan about it. And I'd rather improve people.
Yeah, 100%. probably Ben, just to add to that, and you both said it in other ways, but in hindsight, I would have had more than what we needed, which is exactly what you sort of said, Fuzzy. Always hiring. And it's for exactly the reasons that Ryan just said. Always having capacity for others to be able to train, having a very detailed training program, and it's not just go and get these certs, please, as in an internal training program, but also more importantly, having a good onboarding process. I noted something down for this call today, and I thought onboarding was probably weak. It was probably something we didn't do very well. And I'm happy to say that, in that there should be onboarding for the MSP as a whole, but then there should be a separate onboarding for their role or their team or their department, right? Whether it's sales, marketing, technical, whatever. So you know, what they have to achieve in week 1, 2, 3, 4, having it really laid out, because it's better for them, so they know what they need to hit. It's also better for you, because then if someone says, "Oh, I don't think they're very good," you can at least look at what they're achieving against what you want them to achieve, right? But then, yes, always having capacity to be able to train. And I think that has to come from the top, just as much like you sort of said, your gun L3s, yeah, leadership, 100%, whether that's the L3s or leadership above, whether it's management, leadership all the way to the top. I think that's where the capacity is needed to, like you said, train down. And I think that will really help everyone. So I probably regret not making enough of my own time available for everyone that needed it. That was definitely a core thing that I tried to do, but I could have done more, and I probably could have had others doing more as well.
For those of you that know Dan Williams, I was having a chat with him the other day, and we were talking about onboarding and these sort of bits and pieces as well. And what he was saying that what he's found really successful as being an EOS implementer across all MSPs is where MSPs have a handbook.
Yep.
Right. So it's like the Bible internally. So they can always they go back to that. So that way it's onboarding's in there, and then that way kind of keep going back. He was even saying that a few, successful MSPs that he works with, give it a great name. And I love that. I thought that was kind of, tying it into your kind of company culture and whatnot, that you kind of, you live by it.
It's funny you say that, Ben, because documentation is something I think most, definitely as MSPs mature, we get really good at documenting our technical customers' environments, through your various tools that you've got, but documenting your own stuff. And I don't just mean what servers are used and things like that. I mean, like that, your onboarding, your procedures, your processes. That was something we were trying to work on over the last couple of years that I was there, and it didn't get the time it needed. And again, that was my fault, inherently my fault, regardless of who didn't have the time. That's ultimately rolled up to me. So I think that, and I guess definitely, like we say, hindsight's a beautiful thing. Stepping away, I can see that having more time to have a Bible, so to speak, and everything documented, whether it was a day in the life of a tech, a day in the life of a salesperson, a day in the life of whatever, being able to read that on your first day and then looking at this as your onboarding guide, things like that. I think that would have really helped. I would have liked to, I would have loved to do it. And I think back, why did I not? And the first thing that always comes up, and I'm sure everyone will say the same, it's time. I didn't have time. But let's be honest, if you're going to book a holiday overseas, that goes in your calendar fine. So you just need to block that time out and do it. So
it's a big piece of work as well to sort of create that, right? I think you've got to, and that's what I think scares a lot of people. Oh, cool, I can write a process. All right, cool, I can smash that out and I can get it, away I go. But sort of thinking about, the whole thing, structure, all of that. And that's why I really like that sort of, that handbook approach. It was kind of, I know, it was a visual sort of indicator for me as well. That, so yeah. Dave, everyone's excited about this
to it and using it later is another.
Yeah, well, people get stuck in trying to make it perfect. Don't let perfect get in the way of progress. Like literally get some screenshots down and add some text. It doesn't matter whatever process, procedure, anything internally or whatnot. It's just start there. And then next time you come back to it, you'll think it sucks, but at least it's there. And then you'll add another half a page of notes or whatever. And then after 8 or 9 times you've done that, oh hell, you've now got 6 or 8 pages and it's actually somewhat useful. Start somewhere. It's like, everyone's like, oh no, I don't have the time to do it. It's like, well, yes, you kind of do. It's just you've got to give it a little bit of attention. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just start.
Fuzzy, it's so funny you say that, because the exercise that we were doing was, right, let's list everything that we do. And then let's break that out. And we literally tried to come up with this framework before we ever actually wrote a single procedure. And it just took forever. And great, we ended up with this pretty good matrix, but then it was like, right, now I've got to go and write the procedures. And it was enough time had already been poured into that, getting it perfect. Yeah, it was just a problem. So
that procedure,
Dave, what do you do?
How to write procedures.
Oh, yeah,
I did
yeah.
actually have a procedure on how to write a procedure. So
Sorry, did you say what do we do?
Yeah, do you have like a Bible or a handbook? Sort of how do
Yeah,
you
we
handle
do have
documentation?
a hiring and training process, but I'll go back to what I found is quick wins to start with. So I learned through doing the wrong thing. Like I remember when we had guys come on, it's like, oh, set up your own computer on day one. That's what you're doing.
Yeah.
And then just sort of shadow some people and, we'll help and good luck. And we kind of got by because there was no COVID back then. So we're all just sitting close to each other. And that's amazing for just, a guy can hear him. He's like, no, that client they don't do that. They do this or whatever. They just pick stuff up. So that was really good for, amateur training. But my original instinct when I'd hire and train staff was to start them off easy. And I would advise, don't do that. That's a massive mistake, especially if you're talking about level ones or more junior people. If you get them used to a certain pace that's like half what you actually want, it's quite jarring to now lift that bar up. So what I learned is give them training, whatever it is, a week training, 2 weeks training, whatever you feel is appropriate. But then once they're starting, whatever your metrics are, like ours are hitting 35 hours of ticketed time and certain number of calls answered and things like this, you're doing that the first week. That's what you need to be doing, like get used to it. And people don't know any different. So they just do that. And that's what I found is a good, but like Aaron was saying, you need to invest in them a little bit. And it's really tricky depending on the size of your company and you've got a lot going on. But even if you can't get to them, if you're just at least keeping in touch with them and let them know what you're doing and this person's working with them and stuff like that. But that early investment can pay off big. It can really pay off super big if you just get it right. But we've even got training, especially for the younger guys, on how to answer the phone, which sounds stupid, but some of the younger generation, they don't actually do a lot of phone calls. And it's a bit nerve-wracking actually for some of them. So we actually do training on how to answer the phone, how to put people on hold, right? Like how to get back to them. We do training around don't promise that it's fixed, promise when you'll update them. Just basic stuff that they appreciate because they don't know. They're just starting. So yeah, that sort of answers your question. Yes, we do have a lot of processes and training and all that, but that's not the 80-20, like depending on where the business is at. If you can figure out what stats they need to hit and get them hitting that quickly, that's a good one. And some basics, like depending on what you're doing, how you want a ticket to look or correspondence to look, give some examples. That can really trip a lot of people up, like just in sending an email or responding to an email or who to CC. They don't know some of the younger guys they don't teach it at school. Like
what we've found works well in that and with text, but even in general, when we had our office, anyone from uni, I would actually just turn around and go, cool, all right, forget how to, you're not writing essays here. Let's relearn how to write an email, particularly with, the basics, right? Short, sweet, to the point. But
bullets.
Bullet points. I love good old bullet point. But hey, escalations. If you're going to escalate something, this is like, particularly if you're going to a vendor or even internally, this is what a good escalation looks like, and this is what a bad one looks like. One thing that I was actually having a conversation with a completely separate industry yesterday with a business owner over lunch, and he was talking about that they run a call center, and he was saying that they've got people all over the world in different call centers, different time zones, and he said the biggest one that trips them up with Australians, or to give you an example of basics, was when we turn around and go, "Hey, how are you?" And we just say good, right? But a lot of other cultures, so there's the basics, and for that really highlighted to me, it's like, cool, that was our example of kind of going, hey, this is what a good ticket looks like. The really basics often get overlooked because we jump right ahead and go, so yeah, I thought that one was interesting. And there's a lot of little things like that kind of catch us out, right? Communication is it's big. It's a hard topic. And if anyone gets it
you can
right,
do stuff on communication that's the 80-20, like some basic stuff goes a long way. Like what you do, don't do. That's what Apple does with their training. This is what you do in a store. This is what you don't do in a store. They've got a whole thing. So yeah.
maybe we
Yeah,
stay
we had
on
a
that
we had
topic,
a help desk run through
communication.
some formal phone training a couple of years back. That was good. Same kind of things that you said, David. So, and Ben, you sort of said the "how are you" thing. They called out a few Australianisms, and it was really good. It was good to see the team. They called out. They did some sort of role plays, and it was really fun to see it all sort of happen in real time. And yeah, don't do what you just did, and explain why. And it's all the psychological thing, right? Where you're putting the person on the other end, and how to handle an angry call, how to handle a good call. All of that. It's very important.
It's very important, and you can do some exercises with them, or they can do it with each other.
Yeah, or if someone's screaming at you, don't go, "Oh, okay, like, let me check."
Because you don't spend money.
It's that kind of thing, right? It's
We use a tool called Kennedy as well, from one of our like retraining sort of relatively low cost subscription service. We're not affiliated in any way, shape, or form. Just putting that out there. But I found that kind of helps with an onboarding and those sort of bits and pieces to sort of make sure that people get it. One of many things though. Ryan, in your, what have you seen that really helps with communication? I'm saying now. I was already in the chat. Sorry. Communication. Don't do that on a tech call.
That's right. Exactly. Look, I think, what is it now? As time's gone on, it's now 7 times you've got to tell someone for it to actually, for someone to actually have heard that. Like it used to be probably 3 or 4. I think that's probably the hardest bit for most leader or most manager to realize is a lot of times you think you can tell someone once and that's it. It's like, yeah, I've told you they're aware of it. And where nowadays you've got to say it multiple times. And the best thing, again, and you often learn this with kids as well, is that you ask them, what did they hear or what do they understand from that? Because then they really finds out really quickly whether they actually understood what you're implying or inferring or meaning or whatnot. And that's it's really good with staff as well, especially junior ones. Like, okay, can you do this? Now, what do you think I actually meant from that? And you can turn that into a training piece as well. That works well. But even context is critical. What Dave was saying and Aaron with the phone training and whatnot, it's the context that really is important. And if you can explain and give why you ask for something to be done a certain way or why you want something done a certain way in your business and give that context, it makes an absolutely fantastic piece. And yeah, Kim's product, Kennedy, is actually pretty cool at that as well.
I have a little saying in like when I'm doing sort of communication training, and now I think it's part of our onboarding, it's a video, but I used to do it one-on-one, and it's particularly around written communication. Right, and it's I don't know where I picked it up. I've stolen it from somewhere, as we all do, right? But it was I throw a saying at them and I say, I didn't say you were pretty, right? Because straight away they're like, what? And it's when you put the emphasis on each different word, it means a totally different thing. I didn't say you were pretty, right? And I get them to that to get them to think about, hey, how you're writing an email may not be how it's actually going to be. Or a Slack or a Teams message, pick up the damn phone.
Correct.
kind of
yes,
thing,
absolutely.
right? Yeah, and it really, I found that really kind of helps. But that was, to tie that back to your context, helping them understand why I'm telling you to do this. We do a good ticket like this for this reason, right? Giving context is really powerful. Moving on a little bit.
Hurt my feelings because you didn't think we were pretty.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry.
You told me I was pretty, Ben. It was 3 hours.
I just said that to everyone, so I apologize to the entire call.
It's amazing how much he changed.
Yeah,
it's
I
been
know.
in 41 minutes.
Colourful words. So staying on the topic of staffing, a really common one is around building sales teams. And actually, I was seeing a whole bunch of slides out of the PAX 8 event, and they were talking about sales teams and things like that. So I thought that was a relative topic. So just sort of throwing it out there, what are the biggest mistakes you guys have made? So this isn't so how to build a sales team, but what are the biggest mistakes that you've made as part of growing that?
Go for it, Aaron.
Go.
Not having salespeople, when I say salespeople, all salespeople, sales engineers, sales, whatever, not having them all compensated for commissions like related to what they're doing. That would be something I'll call out. So not like having different people on different models or whatever it was, or having technical people still on that model coming to more sales engineer type roles, and not having everyone, including sales leaders, purely, or not purely based on commission, but very heavily incentivized via commission. So helping, making sure the team are driving what they should be driving. So that's what I would call out first.
I've
made many mistakes, but sorry,
try to find unicorns in the sales team, like as in an account manager that's a great BDM and account manager and is detailed and is this and those little those mythical beasts.
But you keep trying, right? You keep trying.
That's right.
I want the unicorn.
Yeah. If I had my time again, that's probably the biggest thing I would do differently. Is I would actually have dedicated BDM and dedicated AMs. They are very different people, very different way you actually promote them and actually compensate them. But yes, like your account managers are critical to keep your existing customer base happy and slow natural growth in that customer base. And BDMs are there helping knock down doors, and you've got to build a marketing pipeline and marketing funnel before that to give the BDM something to go on and chew on as such. But yes, that's the first thing I'd be doing is good calling and getting marketing and sales qualified leads in and into a BDM and then kind of grow from there.
So
separate the roles.
The other thing was, I would have realized that I should have been more involved in the sales process. I always tried to keep myself separate to it and help where needed. But I had a big conversation. It wasn't too long before I left, actually, with a bunch of friends in MSPs, and asked various different things like, where do you go? How do you find BDMs? Because again, we're hiring BDMs. I did have the split, Ryan, the AM and the BDM thing. I had that going. But through those conversations, I realized, and this is common sense, and I knew this, they were like, no one sells like you. And they were talking about themselves as well. No one sells like you. And I'm like, I know. And they're like, you can't. You need them to knock the doors down. But it's that age-old thing, right? Why do they bring you in? And every time you talk, you seem to close the sale, but you're not a salesperson. That's what I realized I should have been doing more of, instead of going off doing the thing that I was doing towards the end for the last year or two. I definitely should have been there as I don't know, whatever that role is. It's not a BDM. It's not an account manager. It's kind of like a sales engineer, but sorry, say that again.
A closer.
A closer. Yeah. But I mean, it's coming in as the GM, as the whatever you are, but the person that's been
providing authority
knows it, so
as well, right? Providing authority.
I
think you just got to train your team to bring the right people in at the right time. It's like an escalation in a lot of ways. It's kind of like, all right,
it's almost
cool,
like a sales escalation, but as you said,
I've found that
it also depends on the size of the business. So realistically, up to probably 15, 20 people, no one's ever going to sell your business as good as you. That's why in most small business, and especially in technology businesses, owner-led sales shits over everyone else and everything else out there, and will for the next century or next millennia or whatever. It's just going to be that way because you are the most passionate about your business and should be. And if you're not, what the hell are you doing running a business anyway? But yes, you should be the most passionate about your business, and that comes through. And business owners, especially in small business owners want to deal with business owners and people that can make a decision. Now, if you've actually enabled and if you've actually given your account managers and BDMs authority and a framework to work in that they can make a decision right then and there, they will win more business because a customer can ask a question and they can confidently answer it, saying yes or no, they can do that. A lot of times, again, BDM's out there or someone's trying to win new business. Oh, hang on, I need to check with manager. I need to check with my manager. I need to check with the boss if we can do that or whatnot. So at that point in time, the person on the other side of the desk or the other person trying to make the decision doesn't want to deal with them anymore because they can't make a decision. So yeah, they might be okay for 80% of the job, but if they can't make a final decision, then why bother dealing with them? Now it's different as you get bigger and 30 people, 50, 100 people and whatnot. It's a different game again. There are processes, and if you're dealing with big enterprise customers, generally you're not always dealing with the decision makers. You're dealing with someone that's interfacing to them. So you've got to give them all the information and help them go and put you forward in the best light, and then try and get the decision to go your way. But in what the size of and what this webinar is really about for the size of people that should be here or will be here, again, owner-led sales is going to shit over it every day a week. So leverage that as much as you can. most people are scared, and Aaron, as you said, no different than you get a point where you're busy and whatnot, and you don't want to have to go and deal with customer issues all day, every day. You just deal with the ones that bubble up and whatnot. But I also found that I kept a couple of call it pet clients that I would go out and do the account management meetings with the account manager. All right, there was a couple that I didn't even have account managers. I was still the official account manager on a number of clients. And as much as you want to wean that stuff away from you, I actually found it really good because you had customers telling you basically to the horse's mouth as such, how your team are actually performing and what your business is actually doing like. And you want to know that if it's getting a little niggly or something's not working so well, you want to hear about it and deal with it, not when it's become and boiled up over the top or a big mountain out of a molehill or whatever and big issues. You want to deal with them before then. So I think sometimes keeping your ear to the grindstone or getting out there and speaking to customers, as I found, was really, really critical and really important.
Couldn't agree more.
Dave, do you have anything else that you from your side?
Sales is a big one. In an MSP, it's a tricky one. I'd probably, to simplify it, break it up into three main areas. And I agree with what you were saying there, Ryan, about the owner-led sales. So there's new business, there's leads, let's say, just to simplify it. And of course, account management. And I would guess that, or from my experience talking to a lot of owners of MSPs, that if you were to give them leads, genuine leads, they will close the similar percentage. They will close a third, somewhere between a third to 50%, roughly, generally speaking. Maybe a little bit more, a little bit less. Problem's not closing the clients usually. It's the leads. It's getting leads. And that can be really confused. So they can get like a BDM, right? But you actually need leads coming in. And so if that BDM is not generating leads, then that's not actually what you need, or marketing. So it's a complicated one, but that's new business. And I haven't come across many MSPs that are absolutely crushing it with leads just coming in the door. There are some that are doing quite well and they are growing organically, absolutely. But I'm not seeing any MSPs that are doubling every year from just organic growth. It can and does happen, but and excluding small people where it's like you went from 100 to 200, it's like, okay, sure. But
yeah, going from 10 million to 20 million is very
a different thing.
That's not accidental growth.
No. And when you're at that level, just getting 10% is good. You're doing good. And then when it comes to like account managers, I think that when you do what you were saying, Aaron, and break it out, it becomes simpler. You're not trying to get them doing too much. But what helped us a lot is, because you were saying, Ryan, asking too much of people. I kind of like this analogy. If you've got, let's say, a car sales, a dealership, right? They have a product to sell. They're selling you a Mazda, it's this Mazda or whatever. Sometimes as MSPs, we're expecting them to figure out what the product is and put it together. And it's like, well, Jesus, that's a big ask. And you don't necessarily want your salespeople coming up with what you're selling all the time. You want them to have some level of parameters, but if you have offerings that are standardized, this is what they are, this is how we sell them, this is how many hours it takes to deliver per end user. Now they've got something that they can go and push. But if you're expecting them to put solutions together and sell them and account manage, a business owner can do it. Yeah. So I'm leaving that.
That's why you need a sales engineer, really. I think you need a sales engineer to go for your sales team. Like
it's hard to go from like that kind of like to take that first step is really hard and get it right. And I think you've almost got to you never get 100% of what you expect out of that first sales role. You get like, I dare say like 20%. You're still, the owner is still doing bits and pieces. And then you kind of get to the next step and you kind of, okay, now I'm going to put an AM in or whatever it looks like. It's always that first part is harder. It's longer, unless you've got, enough to bankroll you and basically build out a whole team overnight and go plonk, which, most of us don't.
No, but you can if you do an acquisition. That's the way to do that. if you get a bigger team and double your company, and you can figure it all out then.
Or your second and third businesses and things like that is often where people will do that and put that structure in from all their first learnings. So Aaron's 20 years, Roden, Dave, you're 10, at least 10, 13, 14 years already. 25 years and things like that. If you ever went and did this again, you do it very differently. And that's you'd use, and this is exactly what's coming out of this. Like, I'm mindful of time, but there's one more that I would throw in there, and it's not sales related, is I would actually have someone working on your RMM or your automation system and looking for those things as soon as possible. A lot of people, even at 15 people, you need probably one person dedicated just to automation on improving how you actually deliver things to clients and whatnot. I think that can pay spades. So we had 1.5, nearly 2 people full time on that, and one was just literally writing PowerShells and all of that. Almost every day. It's like all software deployment and whatnot. All those things made our team a lot more efficient. We could then deliver projects more profitably. All of those things helped. And that's, I think that'd be another key hire, another key person, is move someone over to there. Like, what is a reoccurring issue that keeps coming up, and can you script or can you solve that through automation and put that in place?
Does anyone, and I don't know the answer to this, but have you guys seen like an ideal MSP team? Like, what a structure at different size resource that maybe we could add into the channel?
I think that'd be an interesting debate, and I think it'd be a religious debate.
Very true.
I'm interested in having it, but I think the reality is it depends on what you're delivering. It depends on you as the owner and your personality. There's IT companies out there that are made up of a third, like literally 30% of their staff base are sales and account management. And there's MSPs out there that have less than 10% of the account management. And it's funny, there's MSPs out there that are technically rubbish, that they're not the great technically, but they've got a great account management process, so the customer's still happy. And it's equally the same on the other side. There's people out there that are fantastic technically, but can't save themselves for a good account management or a good relationship with their clients. So I'd love to say there is, and I'm sure there's plenty of people out there, and some of the other panelists we've had in the past will happily give you some ideas, and I think anyone here would give you some ideas of how it could work and what you should probably start out at. But it comes down to what are you delivering and what service and how deep are you going with the clients and product mix, all of those things.
Yeah, many different models. And
I guess that's kind of what makes our industry unique in a lot of ways, right? That's how there's so many MSPs and how we compete in the ecosystem that we're in. Conscious of time, but I want to ask one last question, and it's a broad one, as with everything that I've been asking. But around pricing, I've been having a few people, it feels like over the last couple of weeks, just ask me a whole bunch of pricing questions, and I've thrown them, Ryan, your way a couple of times. Actually, I'm like, hey, I don't know the answer to this. So I thought, pricing from a profitability. The example that I gave Ryan the other day was, hey, an MSP was they were spending 25 hours a month for a 50-seat MSP organization, but they were only charging $1,700 a month or something like that. And any of you on this call can do the maths, and they were making a loss pretty quickly, but they didn't know what was realistic. They were too scared to put the pricing up without actually losing the business, because they knew they were going to go to market.
Sometimes customers have to go to another company to pay more. That's unfortunately just sometimes what happens. If you set your pricing wrong, you can set a real big rod for yourself. Now, if that instance there with 50 people doing to about 25 hours worth of work and 1,700, if that 1,700 was pretty much automation and RMM stack and antivirus and all of that, then they'd probably still make profit on that. But if they're actually delivering service in that and those 25 hours in that, that's a recipe for major losses in reality. And they think, oh, I can't lose the client, this and the other. It's like, no, go and lose the client.
Yes, lose it now.
That's right. I did an engagement, it'd be probably 12, 15 years ago, and probably about 12 years ago. And I actually openly talk about it. I don't say who the company was, but they stack and ranked all their customers. They had a great kind of agreement profitability and agreement optimizer and all this, that they built out this great calculator. And I said to them before I came in, I said, look, I'm going to be blunt on a few things, so don't take that personally and whatnot. But I actually gave them an example. I said, these bottom 20 customers, I want you to do me a favor. I want you to go and pay them $500 each every single month, ongoing, to use another IT company. And it was a deliberate, real harsh slap. But it was they couldn't, it's like they were literally losing money on so many of the clients. It was actually cheaper for those bottom 20 for them to actually pay them to use someone else than for them to keep delivering the services. It's funny, like it's amazing. Like right now, and I know we've only got a couple of minutes, so I'm doing a lot of industry pricing and whatnot at the moment. And it's a mix. Like I'm seeing some people selling managed services, including remote support, no on-site on this, but at $65, including a business premium license. So ergo, they're charging $30 or $35 a seat. And then there's people that are doing $200 a user with basically no licensing other than some antivirus and a few other things in there. There's a massive gamut, and customers at $100, including business premium. Like that's still only $70 a seat. That's half of what it should be. Like realistically, your labor component on any of that should be $100, $120 a seat. Then you've got to look at your tool set cost. And realistically, you should be aiming for a 50% margin on all your managed services. The best ones are making 60. The bad ones are down at 40. But yeah, you need to be around that 50% gross margin on your managed service offerings. And if you're not, then you've got to understand what your market can bear. But if you can't, if the market can bear and there's a lot of other providers charging a lot more than you, then you need to look at how you're selling it and how you're communicating that to those clients, because they're just not seeing the value from what you're providing.
I think that's a good answer, because it's hard to put a stake in the ground, right, and go charge this.
Yeah, but also,
right,
Ben, also not just about lifting prices, right? You said 50 start, like use your example, 50 seats, 25 staff. I, like you, Ryan, would turn around and go, what are we doing for 25 hours a month for that client? And automation, probably your own staff education, the client education. There's probably a bunch of things you could do there to tie that up. And again, assist with profitability. You still need to increase that price, but you could probably do it from both ends too.
I'd expect that customer spending 10 grand a month, in all seriousness, a minimum 5 grand on your managed services, if not probably closer to 7. Then your Office 365 licensing, let's say $30 a seat times 50, so call it $1,500 there in licensing on Office 365, let alone anything else that's added on top. You're already sitting at 8,000, 9,000 there, let alone doing any sort of internet connectivity, any sort of telephony, any sort of anything else, procurement, and taking all that out. I'd expect a 50-seat customer to be spending that 8 grand a month with you without any product.
You still got to look at it that it's cheaper than them hiring one person to do it internally. So it's always cheaper than that.
I guess that's how you explain it. You communicate it, right?
That's right. They just think, though, they can still pick up a cheap IT person for 50 or 60 grand, though. They just don't know what it really takes and what's needed and everything else. So yeah, it's a false economy, but a lot of them try it.
Yeah.
I'll just comment it just real quick before we finish, and it's just a slightly different way, and it relates to the staff. Over the years, and I'd like to hear what you, Aaron, and Ryan have to say on this. Over the years, I think it's scary. It's scary when you know you've got a staff member you've got to let go, but they have a lot of knowledge, or you've got a client you're worried about upping the rates. And for one reason or another, it's never as bad as you think. It always works out, I swear. Like you get, like, that client does go, but all of a sudden another one comes in, or you get rid of that guy and you're short staffed, but your team rallies because that guy that was bringing everyone down's gone, and it always works out. And you go, why did I wait so long? I swear. Would you agree with that, guys?
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
And I'd also add one word, if you're trying to, like, going into those conversations with the staff member or the client, honesty. That's all it takes. Don't beat around the bush. Don't come up with...
And rip the Band-Aid off.
Yeah, just do it. Just be honest. This is what's going on. Hey, Mr. Customer, you're costing me money. Tell them. They don't want to do that to you.
I mean, we're talking about different sides of industry here, but the customer the client that I was talking with yesterday, right? They deal with, $100 million contract, every single contract, and they were the same thing. They were like, and basically the guy I was meeting with, he was the owner, and he basically, like Ryan said, had a handful of customers, and he would basically turn around to them and go, cool, all right, price has gone up, or what, that he'd explain just that, right? And that was part of his job. And if he didn't, it was like, in a lot of ways, it might have been 100 million. This literally yesterday, he said, it might have been 100 million over 5 years or something like that. But he said that in some cases, if they don't pay it, there's no point in keeping it. even on the big end of
Right.
town, which blew my mind away in the way, there's a lot more that goes into that, obviously. But I think you're right that if you don't have that conversation, you're doing more harm than good, and internalizing it and losing sleep over it and everything else that goes into it is often, you being your own worst enemy. Rip the band-aid
And you're
off
probably
sleep.
better off if you could double your rates, have half the customers, but for still the same amount of revenue and a lot less troubles.
All right. Well, guys, we are over time today. And as always, we only got through about half the questions that I had. But to everyone on the call, thank you for joining us. This session is recorded. It is cut up into a podcast. It's available on Spotify. It's available on YouTube, Vimeo. It's available everywhere. So check it out, share it around. To our panelists, guys, thank you so much. And, this is always a great conversation. Always have a bit of fun with this one, and thank you for sticking around a little bit later. And with that, thanks. We'll wrap it up there.
Thanks, Ben.
Thanks, everyone.
See you guys.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Ben.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
See you, Ben.